Hello everyone, I am Ben with the BTC Sessions. I'm here at the Spruce Meadows Christmas Market in Calgary, and today I'm going to bring to you an interview I had with a guy by the name of Brian Hoffman. He is the CEO at OB1 and project lead at Open Bazaar. We get into a lot of different topics here, so I hope you enjoy. I am very excited to have Brian Hoffman, CEO of Open Bazaar here, and we're going to be talking about Open Bazaar, what it is, and what it enables that up until recently just wasn't possible. So I'm going to toss it to Brian here. I'm going to let him tell everybody who he is, kind of how he got his start, what led him to where he is today. Brian, you can take it away.
Yeah, thanks. Glad to be here, and appreciate getting a chance to chat about Open Bazaar. You know, I usually can't shut up talking about it, so it's good. Yeah, so Open Bazaar. I mean, if you haven't heard of it, it's it's essentially a peer-to-peer marketplace. It's similar in feel to like an eBay or an Amazon type of platform, but it uses Bitcoin as the primary payment mechanism right now, and it uses there's like no centralized network or infrastructure. So when you visit eBay, you visit their website and do all business through their website. In this case, it's a lot more similar to like BitTorrent, where everybody who's on the network actually talk directly to each other without going through other company servers. And I think so. Open Bazaar started in 2014, early 2014. It was actually a spin-off of a proof of concept called Dark Market, which was just like a very quick hackathon entry that kind of just threw the idea out there, like, oh, this could be built. And as you mentioned, before that, it really hadn't been thought of as possible, because you, in order to do trustworthy e-commerce, you really kind of have to have somebody facilitating that whole system, right? So you have to have an eBay in the middle that kind of says, here's a bunch of sellers, here's a bunch of buyers, we'll make sure everything goes properly, we'll process your credit card payments, et cetera, right? Like they have a clear purpose that can't be fulfilled any other way. But since the invention of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, we now have the ability to do a lot of this without having to have a middleman there coordinating. So it's really the happy marriage of peer-to-peer networking, which we've had for decades, as well as cryptocurrency, and all of that combined allow us to build something like what Open Bazaar is.
And so why do you think that it's important to have something like this? Like, what problems does this solve that we were seeing before?
Well, so the internet came along, right? And it proved that information needed to be free or could be free. And so there were no distinct controls or censorship mechanisms built into the internet at large, right? It's just a dumb protocol that sends bits and bytes across countries and everything else, right? We have built those layers on top of the internet as time has gone on. And so, after a few years, you realize that, like, okay, now we can use this communication channel to sell things to each other or trade with each other. And rather than create some kind of open and fair protocol that's real low, that really can't be controlled, it's just truly free like the internet, we've built these silos like eBay and Amazon and Alibaba and Etsy and all these platforms, which are basically redundant. I mean, they kind of do the same thing. They serve a matchmaking purpose. They may focus on a specific niche, maybe not. But regardless, they've created a level of friction between you and your customers, or you and the merchants. And they insert fees. So they charge you a lot of money to use their platforms. They change the rules on you. There's a lot of things that they can do because you have no choice but to go through their platform. So for us, creating Open Bazaar allows us to kind of push it back down to like the internet level and say, hey, what if we thought about trade not as like this service that a company has to offer you, but it's actually something that we all inherently own together on the internet. It's actually part of the internet, so to speak. And so that's really what Open Bazaar aims to be. The software is all open. Anybody can participate. Anybody can help build it. Anybody can use it. There are no costs associated with it. There's no fees for operating on the network other than running your own computer.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really just about making it truly free, not just conceptually free.
So you're just the goal is to fully take out the middleman when it comes to online transactions. And was it crypto that ended up being the final piece of that puzzle to make it possible?
I think that was a big part of it. There's still some pieces of the puzzle that really haven't been solved, and Open Bazaar is certainly not a perfect solution quite yet. Crypto made the payment piece happen, which was, is one of the biggest ones because, if you're a merchant online, and a lot of people have learned this the hard way, is that if you sell something that, for instance, a credit card company or maybe like an Amazon or whatever don't agree with, whether it's just ideologically or legally, you can basically have your business taken away from you. And a lot of times that's done by closing your credit card merchant account or your bank account. It happens to a lot of businesses that operate in kind of gray area markets, like legal marijuana sales or gambling is a huge one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes the credit card rates for those kinds of companies, or like pornography, like legal pornography, those fees, like they don't pay 2 to 3% like a normal merchant pays. They pay like 10, 12, higher percent,
really?
Just because they're that type of company. Like they could be completely legal above board, but because they're in that high risk class, they get charged a lot more. And then oftentimes they just get their accounts closed if something's sketchy. So, for people like that, I mean, that is on the fringe, but there's hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars, going through these types of services, and they're just paying unfair fees. So there's clearly not a open and free marketplace for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you said that some of the pieces of the puzzle haven't been built out yet. So I imagine that in the process of building this, you've come across a lot of different obstacles. So what are some of the biggest obstacles you've had to overcome, and what are some of the ones that you see that you're gonna have to deal with on the horizon?
Yeah, so hands down, over the last 2 or 3 years of building it, the biggest problem we've run into is really taking something that is such a early and nascent technology that really hasn't been commoditized yet, and creating a compelling user experience for anybody. So, converting, you can think of it as like the beginning of the internet was just bulletin boards and like IRC chats and things like that. Like grandma and grandpa don't want to use that. Mm-hmm. It took AOL to come along and show you, here's a friendly experience. This is how you use it. And for crypto, we're kind of still in that really early day where like there aren't a ton of apps out there. There aren't a ton of really great services, especially decentralized ones that don't require like a website or a company to operate them. And so translating really early technology into that good user experience has been very difficult. And that goes all the way to how hard is it to install the software? How hard is it to use the software? How reliable is the software? Those kinds of things have been a really big issue. I think with our newest version, we've conquered a lot of those hurdles and created a pretty good foundation. But now we're starting to move into more advanced challenges, which are like trustworthiness of the people on the network, creating reputation, identity challenges, things like fees. Because that's kind of getting in the weeds. But like with Bitcoin, for instance, fees are not always like straightforward or like consistent.
Yeah, and they're exorbitantly high right now. So that's I imagine that hinders some progress on your platform. What now you're talking about the newest version 2.0. So let's actually walk through what's it look like to a person that wants to go to download Open Bazaar and then start a marketplace. What's that look like for them?
So we've tried to streamline it pretty far, but it's still obviously not quite like signing up at Amazon, on a website. You have to Open Bazaar is currently just a desktop application. I mean, it runs on every operating system mostly, but you still have to download it from our website. And once you install it, you're basically asked to answer a few questions. Nothing like, it's not a registration process, because there really is, like, we don't collect your name and your address and your employer identification number or anything like that, like you would get it with an Amazon account. But we need a little bit of information to understand how you want to use the app. So for instance, you have the choice to see prices in the application in your native currency. So if you're on the United States dollar, or you're on the yuan, whatever, you can change it to that, or you can leave it in Bitcoin. It's up to you. And a couple other things, but it's pretty simple. And once you do that, all you have to do is basically create a listing. There's a button right there on the main screen, create a listing. It looks just like an eBay form. You fill it out, and once your product is up, you're selling and able to accept Bitcoin for your product or service. So it's pretty simple. It's like a few minutes process if everything goes properly.
Yeah, awesome. And so you've seen people using the platform. Have you come across any really interesting items, really cool items? What's the most interesting thing you've seen on Open Bazaar thus far?
I personally, so when I shop, I'm usually buying like physical goods for the most part. One thing that I find really interesting about Open Bazaar, though, is because we allow people to sell digital goods as well as like just services. We see a lot of weird stuff in like the services area, where there's a lot of like go-between consulting type services. For instance, like there's a guy who does like he helps you find like really great cigars. So you can like work with him. He'll like broker a deal between you and maybe like some cigar manufacturer, or help you find what you need, and charges a fee, a price for that. Some other ones are like people are offering Airbnb style services on there. So you can put your apartment for rent up there. You don't have to worry about paying like Airbnb 15% or whatever it costs to rent out your place. And people can pay with Bitcoin, which, a lot of people like to travel privately. They don't want to give up their credit card information or whatever. And so it creates a good platform for that. So I think really it's about all the different kinds of creative services that you could offer people worldwide. And a lot of these services, doing them across borders, across countries, is challenging, because from a legal standpoint, and then also converting the money across, state or country borders, the currencies. There are services that do this, like Elance and things like that, but it's not a simple process. And this, it removes all the friction from that.
Yeah, absolutely. You could feasibly see like a almost like an Uber pop up on something like Open Bazaar, where again, if you're seeing stuff like Airbnb style listings there, you could feasibly create within the Open Bazaar platform an Uber style with no centralized entity that's collecting fees. It's just straight peer to peer. Is that a possibility too?
Oh yeah, definitely. And like, so, one of the biggest requests we've had is like people asking for us to put like geolocation data into the listings. So you could definitely see, like, if people were doing this on their phone, for instance, using the GPS coordinates in the contracts on Open Bazaar, and be able to search and match people up based on that, just like an Uber would. In fact, a guy from Shanghai was operating a very basic version of this. He was offering rides. And when we went to DevCon 2 a year ago, a couple of us, we got the Uber through that. And when we showed up in Shanghai, he actually picked us up. It was all done in Bitcoin. Like, it was all done on Open Bazaar, which is really, really cool. Like, we were half expecting the guy not to be there, but it was actually really cool. And he thought it was really exciting too. It was kind of a cool little moment.
That's great. That's awesome. And so you were talking about search functionality. Now, one thing that I noticed is that in the new version, there's third-party search options. So these are people that have put together search functionality and just you've integrated it into the platform. How exactly does that work?
Yeah, so this kind of goes back to like the challenges of building a decentralized application. I mean, the first thing to understand is like everything is easy when you do it centralized. I mean, there are challenges, but it's easier than doing it in a decentralized way. And so in our first version, we made like kind of a very basic search that worked in a decentralized way, but it was just horrible in terms of performance and results. Because I mean, when you think about it, there's a reason why Google is such a massive conglomerate and so valuable, because they crawl the world's sites, right? And they make it accessible and fast. And that's that's the bar people have set for search. In our system, you know, we have people in Africa that are on like really slow internet connections and really slow computers, and they have data that you need to get. And you have to connect to all those computers and try and find the data you need quickly. It just, it's you can already see that it just sounds like a really desperate move. So what we've done is we've kind of compromised, and we didn't want to just have like, okay, our company build one search engine and that would be the only option. What we've done is we made it so that other people can actually add a search engine option to the app. We package it with 3 default ones, and we got another one coming, but anyone can build one. And basically what they're doing is they're just crawling the network and creating their own kind of optimized index, and your app just hits that, and that's it for search results. And they all can customize it as well. So like you'll notice the search engines are not all exactly the same. They have different options, different filters, sorting, things like that. So we think it's a good compromise. It's not quite completely decentralized, but at the moment, the technology is not really there to do it properly. So.
Yeah. Now, another important thing to you guys, from what I've seen, is privacy. So, as far as privacy goes, what kind of privacy can somebody expect when using Open Bazaar, and what have you implemented to help with that?
So, out of the box, you're not completely anonymous, but you know, obviously, it's not like everything is out there. So, all of your communications with other people on the network is completely encrypted end to end. So if you chat with people, that's all private. You know, things like that. It's all encrypted. If you send in your order information to a merchant, like your address, all that stuff is encrypted. So there's no worries about that. But in terms of straight up privacy of like your IP address and things, that is exposed just like you would if you were connecting to Facebook or whatever. Like they know your IP address. We do offer an optional integration with Tor, which is not, you actually have to spend a little time setting it up. It's not that hard, but if you run the Tor browser, you can connect through that, and then you're pretty much completely anonymous. We haven't done a full security audit on it yet, so that there's, you know, possibly there could be some issues there, but for the most part, we monitor traffic that comes out of the app to make sure that it goes through Tor. If you try to go to like a regular website link and you might be exposed, it warns you and says, you know, you're about to do this. So we take it pretty seriously, but we give people the option to be either.
Okay, awesome. And so now, as we get into decentralized markets and censorship resistance and privacy, inevitably you're going to have some people that come out with criticism saying, well, why do you need this? What nefarious activities are you partaking in? And I'm sure that's something that you hear a lot. What do you say to people that paint with a broad brush or paint with broad strokes like that?
I mean, I think, I mean, there's a lot to talk about there. I mean, you could go for hours talking about the merits of online privacy and anonymity, but generally, you know, the argument is always like, well, if you have nothing to hide, like, why do you need to be private? You know, I mean, I think privacy is something that we as humans deserve to be able to be in control of. And I think the internet and everything going on with that in terms of like government surveillance and all these things is going like very quickly in the wrong direction. I don't think people are working hard enough to actually protect your privacy. And in fact, businesses a lot of times have this like weird, they have to sit on the fence because they need all that information about you in order to sell advertising or like do business deals or whatever. And so for them to adopt a business like ours, where we say, oh, we don't want to know anything about you. We don't want to know what you're selling. We don't know who you're talking to, what you're looking for, any of that stuff. It's just all yours is private. That would be death for most businesses. So I think it's just not something that's going to happen. So for us, being able to provide a tool that does actually protect privacy and does increase security for people is it's a mission that's worth going after. And we believe that there are actually viable opportunities to make profit outside of just harvesting everybody's personal information and exploiting that. So that's kind of the mission that OB1, our company, is tackling. We want to provide valuable services that don't require that compromise.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I'd like to ask now is this is kind of a weird segue, but we were discussing before the fees on the Bitcoin network have been getting a little out of control, and so I again that's got to be a hindrance on the platform. Are you guys exploring the option of having multiple cryptocurrencies available to be used on Open Bazaar?
Yeah, I recently published an article a couple of days ago about our kind of new position and stance on multiple currencies. So just to give a little background, originally we envisioned this as being purely a Bitcoin marketplace because the idea of having like a very, a single digital currency that goes across the world that everybody gets behind and builds was kind of the envision step. And we didn't really see the other coins as being anything other than kind of experiments. But over the last few years, we've clearly seen that the folks that are mostly building Bitcoin have decided it's going to be one type of thing, and that these other coins can serve purposes other than that. And there'll be this kind of ecosystem of different coins that do different things and serve different purposes. And so we've kind of had to evolve past our original vision, I think, and especially with the fees going up, like you said, it's just untenable. If you're selling a T-shirt, you don't want to pay $15 in Bitcoin fees and basically make nothing. That's not realistic. So so we are going to be looking at integrating multiple currencies into the app. We already have a couple people from the different projects looking at that. We're probably going to focus on the Bitcoin-like coins at first, the ones that have kind of spun off of the Bitcoin code base and are very similar. So like Zcash, Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash. But we also want to support some of the more privacy conscious ones like Monero and others, maybe potentially like Dash. So I think we're still a little ways out, obviously, because we just started working on that, and this presents another UX challenge that I think people think is simple, but it's not really, because some people want to accept Bitcoin and some people don't want to accept Bitcoin. Some people want to accept everything and people want to pay with everything. So there's like all these different little scenarios that we have to work through. And but yeah, so long story short, we are looking to integrate more.
Okay, fair enough. Now, what with Open Bazaar and with the integration of various currencies over time and just building the platform in general, what technologies that are kind of being built out right now excite you the most? It could be things like Lightning Network. It could be really anything. It doesn't have to necessarily be related to currency, but what excites you in relation to your platform that could be in the pipeline?
I think the thing that excites me the most is it seems like we're starting to move into this phase of kind of like a layer 2. So not just layer 2 as in Lightning Network, but layer 2 as in people are building cool things on top of blockchains rather than just constantly kind of tweaking and optimizing that bottom layer, which is interesting on its own. But I come from more of like the front end web kind of world, web applications, web services, things like that, things that actual consumers touch, and use on a daily basis. And so it's nice to see we're starting to move into that era. And so I think projects that, a lot of these projects haven't delivered yet, but we're seeing kind of the foundation and we're starting to see work being done on these. And I think in the next few years, it's just going to be an explosion of all these decentralized applications that really are starting to disrupt the big players. I saw an interesting question come in my inbox earlier today. It was from one of the major publications, and they were like, "Well, what do you think about all these, incumbents getting, investing in blockchain? I know Alibaba is investing like billions of dollars in this kind of stuff, and I'm sure the other big names are doing the same." Well, I mean, personally, I think they don't necessarily understand why decentralization is so important. And like I explained earlier, I think it kind of goes against a lot of their business models. And so I'm excited to see that all these new people rushing into blockchain, they're excited for the technology. They understand why it's so important. They're the ones that are going to be the new stewards of the internet. They're going to be it's going to be this changing of the guard. And so I'm excited to see that happen. I think it's really cool that just several years ago, it was a bunch of hackers, sitting around talking about buying a pizza with Bitcoin. And now I go to conferences and there are millionaires. I mean, they're just millionaires, which is, it's incredible. And it's not CEOs that sold their startup or got acquired by Google and their staff have like a little piece of it. They all are like, they have an equal opportunity to like enrich themselves through the hard work that we're doing with blockchain. So it's a really exciting time for sure.
Awesome. So in this, I guess, talking about the future here, what is your 10, 20 years down the road utopian vision for what the internet and online life could be given all this new technology?
I mean, in my eyes, I don't want to see like the current landscape really changing in terms of like the excitement that kids have when they're using touch screens and phones and all this stuff. I think really the hard work that we're putting in is going to be behind the scenes. It's going to be protecting us in ways that we don't have to think about, because right now, every time you swipe your card in a Target or whatever, you have to think, oh, who's going to hack this credit card account or whatever. And I think, the stuff that we're doing now is going to start to eliminate those scenarios so that people can go back to having fun and like being social online and like building cool businesses and projects and stuff. So I really think that the experience will just get more exciting and will probably continue down the road, except I think that the people that are in control of your data will be you instead of corporations.
Yeah. With all the decentralization and this push to take out middlemen, where do you think the business opportunities lie?
That's a really good question. I mean, I think this is, this is like one of the biggest things that we didn't have a great answer to when we got our venture capital funding for OB1, which was like, look, we're trying to basically blow up any business model that you've seen in this space. So what do you do? I mean, there's a couple different ways that I think it could go down. One is kind of our original idea, which was, I think that there are actually useful services that you can provide people that don't require being a middleman. So, for instance, like digital insurance for buyer protection, or like merchant applications. So like, I want to do inventory management, like offering somebody like a piece of software to help them better run their business. That's not like an exploitative type of service, right? Like they have the freedom to use that service, right?
You're adding value versus swiping a cut out of the middle.
Yeah, you're not like rent seeking. So non-rent seeking type, value added services. That's one. That's kind of like a more traditional, old school way of looking at it. And I don't think that those needs will go away. I mean, there can't be free and open source software for everything, I don't think, or at least there won't be for a long time. That's one thing we're looking at. The other one is a little bit more in the future, and I'm not sure that we've seen anybody like prove that this can't, is going to work for sure. But it's through the use of like tokens. So basically, rather than just have a traditional business relationship where I accept money directly from you, that there's this actual protocol that incentivizes people to do things and rewards them for whatever they're doing on the network. And, we're starting to see things like Filecoin, for instance, where, they're building basically an Amazon S3 for cloud storage, and you pay for it with the token. You get paid to store things for people with the token. It doesn't you're not paying Amazon to do this stuff. They're not setting up servers. It's really just the network kind of does all that. And I think, if those types of business models start to succeed, then we could see a complete shift where economies are just being run through, peer-to-peer networks, blockchain type systems. So that's cool. We haven't really seen that yet, other than with like Bitcoin and Ethereum just in general as like for stock trading purposes. But I think it will start to expand into other areas very quickly.
Do you see a future where there are just countless blockchains and all these different tokens on separate systems, or do you see them eventually kind of being built on a single blockchain as side chains, or do you see them all interoperating, kind of the mesh network of different blockchains together? Like how do you see this playing out in the long run?
That's a really interesting question, and I wish I was smart enough to give you a really great answer there. But I mean, over history, we've seen that things start out decentralized and tend to centralize, right? We saw this with .com era, like all this crazy capital rushed in, it created a bubble. All these companies were springing up with dumb ideas, and then it kind of exploded, and out of that came some really great more mature companies. There's a lot of destruction, but these really like mature services came out of that. And I think my hunch is that will happen again. I hope it's not the case. I don't know if these blockchain type networks are going to avoid that, but I think that people will start to see that, oh, if I centralize this piece of the blockchain, or I centralize this part, or maybe this could be centralized, but not that. They start hedging. We'll start to see more centralization, and they'll already have a user base, and it will start to go back to that model. So in that respect, I really I have a lot of respect for like Bitcoin, because they're so focused on ensuring that kind of reality doesn't occur, at least in the Bitcoin sphere. So I guess we'll probably see a ton of these projects go away in the next few years. They'll run out of money, or they'll do something dumb, or they won't be valuable. But I think that there will be a couple really key critical ones that survive and create some awesome value, and they'll have like huge followings. And I don't know about inter operating between the different networks. With Ethereum, you've already seen that like they've built a whole another layer on top of ETH, with the ERC20 tokens and things like that. So maybe that's what happens, and maybe Bitcoin will get something similar to that. So they'll have their own stack of applications and layers. But I think ultimately there will only probably be a few of those as time goes on.
Yeah. Much like .com bubble, the riffraff went away, and the ones that added value did stick around. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next decade here, I'm sure. So what I'd like to do last is I usually ask this question of everybody that I have on. It's kind of a broad, sweeping question. So, I mean, you can be as detailed or as vague as you like, but I always ask, what does Bitcoin and the creation of the entire cryptocurrency sphere in general represent to you?
I think the thing that those types of technologies like really do well is they basically create a way for people to get value, to move value without any permission whatsoever. And I think it's very similar to the feeling that I had when I was like building websites for the first time. It was like this, I can create something out of nothing. Like no one said, I didn't have to go to the store and buy, permission to start building, to start coding, to build like this service, to put it out on the web. Like it was just about me taking the energy to do that. And with Bitcoin, it's like, it's not about creating magical money necessarily out of nothing. It's about creating value for people and like being able to exchange that, and like no one controls that. Like I can sit here and I can earn thousands and thousands of dollars, and I can send that to anywhere else in the world for some other reason, and it's just us doing it. We don't have to wait for the government to print more money. We don't have to worry that, you know, there's going to be laws preventing us from doing these things. So the ability to just be free with money is just incredible. And so it's a nice tandem with freedom of information. It just makes sense. It's crazy that it never came before this, but that's really the thing that means the most to me.
It was the next necessary step.
Yeah.
Yeah. So where can people find yourself and info about Open Bazaar, and where can they download the program and give it a try?
Sure. Well, I mean, the most important place is openbazaar.com or .org. They both go there. You can download the software right there from the main page, and it's pretty self-explanatory. You run it, and you're up and going. And I also run OB1, which I was saying which is a company. Open Bazaar is actually the project, but I run OB1, and we're going to be looking to release a mobile app that runs on Open Bazaar soon, and we're really excited. You'll be able to get that on Apple first, and hopefully Android after that. And we're just really excited to get people using the app. The 2.0 has only been out for a little while, but we've already seen like tons of people using the platform from all over the world. It's really, really, really exciting.
That's great. And can people follow you on social media in any way, shape, or form? Is there?
Yeah, you can follow the official account at Open Bazaar, or you can follow me personally at Brian C. Hoffman. Very early on, Twitter took back my cool handle because someone else owned it, and I ended up with Brian C. Hoffman. But yeah, that's where I'm at.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Well, Brian, thank you so much for coming on. I love talking with you. I'm playing around with Open Bazaar as we speak, and maybe I'll get a store going myself here.
Awesome. Yeah, that would be really great.
All right. Well, have a great day, and I'll see everybody else next time on the BTC Sessions. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please don't forget to hit like and subscribe, drop a tip if you're able to, and share this video. Also, if you'd like to support the show in another way, check out my affiliate links below to grab yourself a hardware wallet. I will see you guys next time on the BTC Sessions.